Now that you've connected Receptor to your host computer and configured it for UniWire, you're ready to start sequencing. As mentioned previously, Receptor no longer needs audio and MIDI cables to connect to your digital audio workstation. Instead, you work with Receptor the way you would work with any software synthesizer or effect, by instantiating it as a plugin. There are two types of UniWire plugins. One is an audio instrument plugin, which allows Receptor to work as a sound module within your sequencer. The other is an effects plugin, which lets Receptor operate instead as a signal processor. In this example, I'll use Cubase SX3. If you're using a different sequencer, see its documentation to learn exactly how it handles virtual instruments and effects. In Cubase's VST Instruments window, I'll add a UniWire instrument to the list. Then, in the project window, I'll create a new MIDI track, make sure I route data from my MIDI keyboard controller to it, and I'll assign the output of that track to the UniWire instrument plugin. If everything's been configured properly and a sound generating patch is currently loaded into Receptor, then if I play a couple of notes on my keyboard, well, then I hear that patch playing out through my computer's audio interface. Now when you think about it, that's pretty amazing. I've just sent MIDI data from a MIDI track in my sequencer to the UniWire plugin, which in turn sends the data out my computer's Ethernet port and into Receptor. Receptor routes the data appropriately, plays it using whatever patch is currently loaded, and then sends audio back out over that same Ethernet cable, arriving back at the UniWire plugin where it's heard in your sequencer. And I've done all this without using a single audio or MIDI cable and without altering my sequencing workflow, since I now work with Receptor exactly like any other plugin that runs natively inside my computer. Except, of course, I have no CPU drain because Receptor is an external device. The UniWire effects plugin works similarly. Assume I have this track in Cubase. It's fairly clean sounding, and I want to make it grittier by running it through some effects on Receptor. To do this, I click on an Insert Effects slot, and I choose the UniWire Effects plugin from the Muse folder. Now, because I'm using Receptor as an external effects processor, I'll need to configure a Receptor patch for this purpose. Specifically, within Receptor's user interface, I click the source selector and choose UniWire as an audio source, and then I instantiate one or more effects in Receptor's effects slots. Here I've used Ohm Force's Preditone distortion plugin. Now, when I play that audio file on my sequencer, it'll be much edgier thanks to its trip through Receptor. Since, as you've just seen, Receptor now integrates with your sequencer through the UniWire plugin, we'll take a tour of that plugin in the next video.